So cluster is a concentration of enterprises. Why cluster is needed? We see, as Michael Porter defines geographical concentration and SME Foundation in Bangladeshi definition. So both the definition we already have discussed. So why cluster is needed? Cluster is important because inside the cluster, enterprises face competition among themselves. This competition leads them towards higher productivity. That means inside the cluster, enterprises became higher productive. This competition also leads them towards better quality of products. Because if one organization can offer a better quality product in a competitive price, then they will sustain. Otherwise, they will be failed to sustain. So for the sustainability of enterprises, inside the cluster, they became more productive and produce better quality product. As similar products or homogeneous products are producing in a cluster, therefore buyers comes from local or domestic market as well as sometimes from international markets. As there are enormous number of buyers, so they have enormous number of orders. As a result, they can produce huge quantity. While any particular produce in a mass quantity, then economies of scale happen. So per unit cost became lower inside the cluster. So it is another very important criteria of an enterprise inside the cluster that they enjoy economies of scale. As we were discussing, many enterprises are producing similar products inside the cluster. Therefore, buyers from local market, from national market, from international markets concentrate to that particular location. As a result, they have a very higher number of buyers. As these buyers are available, therefore, high standards, raw materials are available inside the cluster. Skill level for that particular task is also available. And knowledge about the technology, productivity, product quality, innovativeness are there inside the cluster. As they have common vision, they can be united and claim relevant services from the government or from development partners or any other supporting organizations. So cluster, inside the cluster, the enterprises have shared visions. This is an important criteria to get access to industrial utilities, industrial services, as well as government support. So as they are producing homogeneous products, cluster organizations or cluster enterprises are more competitive than the outside cluster enterprises. They are more innovative than the outside cluster enterprises. Their innovation sometimes leads towards innovation of new products or services. For example, if any particular product is producing by various organizations in a particular location, so they always try to add new features, new values in their products for getting customers' attention. So this tendency leads them to add new features in existing products or innovate new products for that particular purpose. As they are united inside the cluster, they have developed negotiation skills, negotiation power with government and other stakeholders. As a result, they can take collective action and joint effort to solve any problem. So all these features leads the enterprises inside cluster a leading edge than the enterprises located outside clusters. So as we were discussing cluster stakeholders. So who are the stakeholders in a cluster? In a particular cluster, there are many types of stakeholders that could be. The first and foremost, number one stakeholder is the entrepreneurs of the clusters, the owners of the farms or factories inside the cluster. They are the number one, and entrepreneurs are the number one stakeholder in a cluster. Secondly, local government institutions, for example, union parishad, municipality corporations, and local administrations, they are the stakeholders of a clusters. For example, to issue trade license of an enterprise enterprise located in a particular cluster, so that particular union parishad or municipality corporations will issue the trade license for them. So they are the stakeholders. Then third stakeholder is the raw material suppliers. All the suppliers of that particular clusters are stakeholders, important stakeholder of the clusters. Then income tax, VAT, and customs authority are the stakeholders of a cluster. Because if anybody would like to operate business, he must pay income tax, VAT, and customs. So they are the stakeholders of a clusters. Department of Environment. As you know, in Bangladesh, if anybody would like to start any sort of business, any enterprise, then he have to have clearance from the Department of Environment that his production or operation procedures is safe for the environment, is not harmful for the environment. Therefore, Department of Environment is also another important stakeholder of a cluster. So a cluster cannot move its goods or services without roads and construction. So Roads Construction Authority or the Roads and Highway or the other authority, those who have responsibility to build road, they are the stakeholders, very important stakeholder of cluster. All the industrial utility suppliers, that means electricity, gas, water, and other utility suppliers authority are the important stakeholders of a cluster. Then controller of export-import. They issue export license and import licenses. So they are the stakeholders of any particular clusters. Local law enforcement agencies, local police stations, and other law enforcers are also important stakeholders of a cluster. Wastage Management Authority, municipal corporation, printing packaging businesses, the backward linkage industries, the transport companies, the intermediate raw material suppliers, repairing workshops. When a machine in a cluster, in an enterprise of a cluster became faulty, then the repairing workshops are also important part of that particular clusters. Standard authority, standard and testing authority, training centers, technology suppliers, common facility centers, these are important stakeholders of a clusters. Bank and non-bank financial institutions, those who are supplying credits for the enterprises for business are important stakeholders of a particular cluster. Insurance authority, technical and other facilities providing government agencies, local workers, buyers, think tanks, policy advocacy organizations, large national and international companies, and support service providers. Finally, government and development partners are the important stakeholders of a cluster. Role of government and development partners. What government and development partners can do